So it kind of seems like Hoka watched my wishlist video last year, because this year's Mach gets Peba foam and a Pebax plate. So how do these additions make the Mach X different from the regular Mach, and how does the shoe perform overall? Well, after a few runs in it, I'm ready to give you my first impressions. A quick disclaimer that I am a Running Warehouse ambassador, and they did kindly send this shoe to me, but all my thoughts and opinions are my own. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the specs. The stack height of the Mach X is 39mm in the heel and 34 in the forefoot with a 5mm heel to toe drop. The weight comes in at 9.4 ounces in a men's size 10, and the price is $180. I put this in the super trainer category. Let's dive a bit more in detail and talk about what's new in the shoe overview. So the upper uses engineered jacquard mesh. It has a gusseted tongue, and it does have lightweight padding around the ankle. The midsole uses a top layer of Peba foam and a bottom layer of compression molded EVA foam. Sandwiched in between the two is a Pebax plate. The outsole has thin patches of Durabrasion rubber. Moving on to the fit of the Mach X, I got my typical men's size 12, and I thought that it fit true to size. Though the toe box is a little pointed, so depending kind of how your foot's shaped, it might feel a tad snug up there. Luckily the width is fine, but the length you might need to play around with depending on your foot. But overall, I thought that the fit was pretty good. I did have some slight heel slip when I was walking around in the shoes, but when I started running, I didn't seem to notice it, and I did do a runner's loop just to make sure, and again, it was nothing that I noticed while running. Now, talking about the ride and my first impressions of the shoe, I thought that the two different foams, the plate and the rocker, all worked well together nicely to give you a smooth heel-to-toe transition. I did notice that when I was running at slower paces in the Mach X, that I felt more of that Peba foam. I kind of sunk into it a little more and kind of got a softer feeling to the shoe. However, when I was picking up the pace, I was sinking down into the Peba foam and hitting that plate and that little bit firmer EVA foam in there as well. And that made for a more responsive ride, which was nice when going fast. So although I've only done a few runs in it so far, I do think that this is going to be a versatile do-it-all super trainer. Like I mentioned, the easy day I did on this shoe, it has enough cushion underneath there, and it has that Peba foam to make it comfortable for long and slow. But when you're picking up the pace, the dual midsoles and that plate do make it feel a little more lively. So to me, this shoe is a much better option than the Carbon X3, because not only does it have a much better upper, but it does have an actual super foam in it, and even though it doesn't have a carbon plate, I still find it to be very fast and responsive. So again, I think the versatility is one of the really nice things about this shoe, and although it doesn't feel as kind of soft and squishy overall as something like the SE Trainer, I do think that the shoe feels more balanced. Alright, now I'm going to be doing a few quick comparisons to the Mach X, and the first shoe I'm going to compare it to is the Hoka Mach 4. So both these shoes share the Mach name, but they do have some differences. So they both have the ProFly system in the midsole, which essentially means there's a softer layer of foam on the top and a firmer layer of foam on the bottom. However, the Mach 4 and the Mach 5, they both use a softer version of EVA on the top, while they use the rubberized EVA, which is a lot firmer on the bottom layer and has no plate, while the Mach X uses the top layer of Peba foam with a bottom layer of compression molded EVA foam and a Pebax plate sandwiched in between. And the bottom layer of the midsole also acts as the outsole on the Mach 4 and 5, while the Mach X does have a more traditional rubber outsole to it. So I do think these shoes share a lot in common, and they're both great up-tempo versatile trainers. However, I think the main difference is going to be the amount of cushioning on these shoes. I liked this shoe, but for some of those longer runs, I was wishing there's a little more underfoot, which the Mach X does have. And also I thought this kind of felt like the EVA foam broke down a little more after, you know, close to that 60-mile mark and started feeling flat around 100. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen with the Peba foam here. But when picking up the pace and doing some more faster efforts, I did like the plate in the Mach X. I thought it made it add a little extra snap to the shoe. Again, both of these are great options, kind of depends on your preference, but if I did have to pick one that I use for training and for racing, I would definitely go with the Mach X, thanks to that Peba foam and that plate. The next shoe is the Rocket X2 from Hoka. This was their first shoe that they released earlier this year that uses Peba foam, and unlike the Mach X, this uses full Peba foam both on the top and the bottom, and it does have a plate, but unlike the Mach X, it is carbon fiber instead of Pebax. The upper is definitely much more minimal on the Rocket X2, which is to be expected because this is a pure race day shoe, while this is again kind of that super trainer where you can kind of do it all, race day and everyday training. So I do think that the ride of the Rocket X is a little squishier, softer feeling, and maybe a tad more unstable, but definitely a super plush and premium ride. I think that the Mach X is a little bit firmer with that EVA foam thrown in there. And for race day, if I had the choice, I would definitely choose the Rocket X hands down for that. However, I do think that the Mach X is a solid training companion to the Rocket X, where you save this for race day and do your training runs and workouts in the Mach X. The final comparison is going to be against Asics Superblast. So these I'd put both in the same category of super trainers. They both have a top layer of super foam with a bottom layer of not so super foam. In this case, it's a top layer of the Flight Foam Turbo on the Superblast and bottom layer of the Flight Foam Blast Plus. And this one does have the more traditional outsole as well. This one definitely has a lot more super foam to regular foam ratio in it, and it does have a higher stack height overall with 45 millimeters instead of that 39 millimeters. However, the Superblast does not have a plate. The reason I thought these two would be a good comparison though is that they are both super versatile, do-it-all super trainers. And I think they kind of feel a little bit similar in a sense too, where it's not that super soft, spongy super foam feel, but it's a little bit more on the responsive side, which I find nice, especially since neither of these have a carbon plate to make it super stiff. I think it just feels a very nice balanced ride where it's not too soft and squishy, but also not too firm and stiff. So if you do like the Superblast, I think you will also really like the Mach X. So last year I said that Hoka was falling behind the competition. They were still using EVA foam, but it looks like they tried to prove me wrong in 2023, and they're putting Peba in a lot of their shoes. I think that the Mach X is on par with the competition. It has that premium Peba foam in there, and it's a very versatile do-it-all super trainer. I do still need to put more miles on this shoe before I give you my final verdict in the full review, but until then, I do plan on teaming up with Running Warehouse and giving a pair of these away. So that giveaway is going to be on Instagram, and all the details and everything are going to be over there. So make sure you follow me on Instagram at TFXC Shoes so you don't miss out on that. Anyways, thanks for watching my video, and as always, keep on running.